Today's daily rehab session is to show you some overhead stability options for when you're doing shoulder strengthening, especially after a rotator cuff injury or rotator cuff surgery. So we're going to get straight into it. What I get people doing when they're at that stage, they've done their rotator cuff work, they've got their scapula sorted, they're working on overhead, they want to get back to doing overhead presses, above head stuff, but they still lack a little bit of stability in that movement. Then what I get them doing is what we call a side sprinter to start with. Now this progresses all the way through to shoulder pressing, but if you do it with a lateral band like this, meaning the lateral, it's going meaty but the load is lateral, then you'll work on your rotator cuff stability through the press movement. So the first one I get them doing is working on what we call a side sprinter, meaning it looks like you're sprinting or someone who sprints like that. And going from this position where your elbow is at 90 degrees, the band needs to have some sort of decent tension at this point. So I'd set that band attached to something that's around about sort of midway between shoulder, perhaps, and elbow height. And if you look at this way, what I want you to show you is when I come upwards, that forearm needs to stay vertical, okay? The band is trying to pull me inwards. So when I pull outwards, what I'm doing is not really any load for the front. All the load is sitting around in that lateral rotator cuff. So up we go here. I'm learning to try and can I keep my shoulder stable throughout a forward flexion movement, okay, which presses me into a shoulder press movement. So the first stage is this. Now, you'll start off with this sort of thing and you go, oh, that's not too hard. When you get to around about reps 7, 8, depends on the person, then you'll see the fatigue kick in. You've got to be careful you don't get too much fatigue. You also don't want to be too much band that it pulls me inwards like that. If I can't pull outwards, if I haven't got enough strength all the way up, then I have to come in so I can have normal full range to there. Now, that is your side sprinter. So that's only sort of getting to shoulder height. Then what you've got to try and do is go, well, if I can complete that, can I go all the way up above head in that same sort of plane? Now this is starting to get into a shoulder press plane. So what you can do is have the same amount of band tension, put your arm out into like a shoulder press position, come up to that position, and then try and keep a vertical forearm and press up to the ceiling like that, okay? And then come back down and then return to your side sprinter, because you need that little rest period. Remember, there's no load pushing upwards at this stage, so this is good for recovering shoulders who haven't got the strength. The load's all that way. If you don't have a little rest period in there, it's going to start fatiguing really, really quickly. So make sure when you're doing a pressing overhead with this, okay, when you're in that early stage, when you haven't got enough shoulder strength or conditioning, that you have a rest period. So the rest period's from there to there, and then you're going straight up, trying to maintain a vertical line, and then come down. Some people won't have the mobility. You might have to work on the mobility to get that, so that they haven't got the external rotation range up into here, and that's what we work on early in programs, is can you get that range up there and then press above. You might have to test them, like can you actually get a vertical line with your shoulder, or does it sort of go inwards? Do you press inwards like that? So make sure you've actually got the range there before you start adding on a load like that. So that would be your sort of 2 entry-level stuff. Once you can get a full press with the lateral band and maintain the form, then you can add the load. So rather than going just straight to shoulder pressing like this, where you'll find a lot of people, if they do that, they rotate inwards. They haven't got the lateral rotation. So using this to start with will sort of test that and make sure they've got it before you start making things extremely hard. So what do you do to add on that? You simply add the load of a shoulder press and the load of a side sprinter together. So best way to do that, I put that band through there onto my wrist, so I don't even have to grip it. I don't have to worry about that. Then I just focus on the dumbbell. Now this is only 8 kilos, but it's enough, okay? And so to start with, you might start with 4 or 6, depends on the person, depends on their conditioning, their load. From that position, I would make sure you're on a 45-degree angle, just like a 45-degree angle shoulder press, but there's that lateral band there sitting. Okay, so just be careful how much load you have on here, because now I've got double load. So when I push up, I want to make sure I can keep that vertical line there and then come back down to that same position. All right, making sure my rhythm's all okay. So as I press up, I don't want the band pulling me inwards. So You can't really start off with very heavy tension load here. Start off with it really light, work on the load of the kettlebell. Once you can achieve that, then you may increase maybe not just the kettlebell, you may start increasing the load. You may even go to a mini power band if you're a stronger type of person. So let's just recap that one. Shoulder press with the lateral band into there. It creates an extra layer of rotator cuff work, an extra layer of stability of that joint in a press movement. Now, to make that even harder, you would have seen sometimes people doing kettlebells upside down. Now that's this way, which creates a wobbliness as you go up. So you're just adding complexity to that. That would be more of a final stage thing before they move into strength and conditioning. So if you're at that end stage rehab, then this is probably a good thing to do rather than just shoulder pressing. If you want to get a little bit more stability, a little bit more rotator cuff work done while you're doing pressing because you're not really at that heavy level stage yet, then just simply turn that upside down. So you don't have to increase the weight here. You don't have to increase the band weight here. What you're doing is increasing the stability or the difficulty of what you're doing. So you'll get more fatigue, you'll get more benefit out of that shoulder. Because remember, strong shoulders are stable shoulders. Okay, it doesn't really matter how big they are or how much weight you've got going on there. It's how stable they are through the movement, and that will generate the strength. So there's my tips for today. See you next time.